Okay, so Anthony, you've just released this brand new book. It's Tracing Your Aristocratic Ancestors.
Yeah, there it is.
It's available from all good booksellers, no doubt. It's published by Pen and Sword Books, and it's a fascinating subject. I've read into the book, and earlier today you introduced me to a lady who's discovered that she is a Russian princess. I'm sure we'd all love to find that we are really aristocrats. Could you tell us more about the principles of searching for your aristocratic ancestors?
Well, yes, the point of the book is that my contention is that we've all got aristocratic ancestors. There's a chap called Joseph Chang who did a very, very long, complicated sum about 10 years ago to prove that if anyone who was alive in the year 1200 had any descendants at all nowadays, then he must be the ancestor of everyone who's alive. Now, as one of those people was King John, who was on the throne at the time, and it goes to show that we must be descended from King John. Now, that's an interesting statistic. But this book is really about how to go about the nitty-gritty of proving that you've got blue blood of your own. So it starts off with exploring family stories. Everyone's got a story about an aristocrat who had an illegitimate child and then they had to change their name and run away. Well, everyone's got these wonderful stories. And so I thought I'd explain how the stories, some stories could be right, some stories might be wrong, some might be made up, some might be fantasy. But in amongst those, you get the ones that are actually true. And also the other point that in many cases the line of your family that's got an interesting story like that might be the wrong one to trace. You might in fact be wanting to look for the family where there's no story at all. I mean, for example, with Kate Middleton's family, her father's side of the family was very sort of upper class, and they did have stories like that, but none of them proved to be right. Whereas her mother's side of the family, who were all very poor coal miners in County Durham, have been traced back by an American recently, and they found that actually there was a descent from a baronet who died in a workhouse.
That's really interesting.
And it's descended from Edward IV. So yeah, so it just goes to show you will find an aristocratic ancestor if you dig far enough, but it might not be up the line you thought it was going to be up.
Of course, up until very recently, we've all been looking at our ag labs and good, solid, working class ancestors. Do you think that there's now a sea change where we're now willing to admit that we have aristocratic ancestors?
Well, that would be a wonderful thing to come out of this book, wouldn't it? I mean, you're right. For about all the time I've been a genealogist, genealogists have just gone on about the fact they're really proud of having agricultural ag labs, my agricultural labour ancestors, framework knitters, good solid coal miners and all the rest of it. Of course, it's wonderful to have those. But I always suspect that the day they found an aristocratic ancestor, they'd shove their agricultural labourers into the drawer and go around saying, "Hurrah, I found an aristocrat at last." And I think people play to their strengths, don't they? So if all you've got are agricultural labourers, then you're proud of them. But when you find an aristocrat, it's more. I'll tell you why it's more exciting to find an aristocrat. It's because agricultural labourers aren't that well recorded. So, however interesting the lives of the agricultural labourers were in general, you're not going to find out much about them. There's not much family history there. There's not much pedigree. If you find an aristocratic ancestor, though, you can find out what they look like. There'll be portraits, wills, lots of nice documentation, and also they had pedigrees. And the pedigrees go back, not up just like the male lines, but their fathers and their grandmothers married into other aristocratic lines. Some of them married into lines which we call gateway ancestors, which is someone who's got royal blood. And so you can go up those lines, you get back to royalty, and from the royalty, of course, you go back to all the fascinating ancient pedigrees, which are my great interest, my real interest, are the Dark Age pedigrees, and the ones that claimed descent from gods. Now, this book isn't claiming that that's true. It's not claiming that the gods exist or that we really are descended from them. But what's true is that we can prove we're descended from people who believed that they had the blood of Odin, of Adam and Eve, of Aphrodite and Zeus in their blood. And that's what I think is so interesting. That's what excites me, and I love it if you can get back to one of those wonderful pedigrees that goes back to wonderful origins. And the book explains why such pedigrees came into existence.
Okay, thank you very much. Tracing Your Aristocratic Ancestors is available from all good bookshops.